feedback on the multiple choice for the mid-course exam for Studies of Religion 2015. They were quite hard, and we deliberately set them quite hard, and we deliberately wanted to make sure you had a good understanding of the preliminary content as well, particularly the dot points, because they have a massive indication that they tie very closely to what you need to understand for the HSC as well, so they're required and expected knowledge. Okay, so the first question was on the principal beliefs for Christianity. Now, a few people got this wrong. We had, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 people got this wrong. Most people got it correct, knowing that it was divinity, humanity of Jesus Christ, omnipotence of God and revelation. I think what threw people for A was they saw these two and they saw sacraments. Now, sacraments only applies to some variants, but not all variants, so it's really only the Orthodox, the very high Anglican and the Catholic adherents who believe in the sacraments. Other variants don't. This one down here spoke about the significance of the clergy, which we should know is not important to all Christian adherents. It's certainly not a principal belief of Christianity, and the same down here for the structure of the church. So it was quite a simple one. We really should be making sure we get these right. Question 2, we had more people get it wrong than got it right, which was a bit of a worry, and I think the reasons are just the language used and understanding the different parts. So when we're looking at the principal beliefs of Judaism, there's only really these: the belief in the single God who is the creator of the universe, the covenant, and divinely inspired moral law. They're the three beliefs as shown in the syllabus, and that's what they are for Judaism. What I think threw people here for these two down the bottom were that they saw prophetic vision, which is an aspect of ethics, and also the commandments of the Torah, which are also aspects of ethics. They're an important part of the faith, but they're not necessarily principal beliefs. So we just need to make sure that we're understanding the difference between an aspect of the faith and a principal belief of that faith. Question 3 had 2 statements about Pope John's encyclicals, and yes, this was quite challenging, but we wanted you to understand how important it is to know these off by heart, to know what they are and what they mean. So Mater and Magister is mother and teacher, which is talking about the church, and so it was about the social role of the church. So this is correct, and this was 1961. The second one had Petri Cathedrum was the last encyclical he wrote. That's not correct. This was one of the earliest ones he wrote. This was 1959. This is 1961, and we should know that Pacem in Terris, which is the encyclical that really relates to the Cold War, was written in 1963. So you had to kind of use your own knowledge there and combine knowledge to be able to figure that out. Even if you didn't know the exact dates, you should know that Pacem in Terris was one of the last ones. It was the last one he wrote, because it tied in with the Cold War, and that the Cold War was in the 1960s, so therefore it would have been less likely that this would be the last encyclical he wrote. So you had to try and combine all that knowledge there. So what I'm thinking is that these people kind of were guessing who got it wrong. That's what I'm interpreting from the data here, because there's no clear distractor that's confusing people. They're all quite balanced, but I'm quite buoyed to know that a lot of people got this one right in C. Question 4 was another one we had to have two statements to talk about. 2 following statements: euthanasia is condemned by all Christian variants, which is true, and the Catholic Church does not support stem cell research, which is actually false, because we need to make sure we understand the content. And we threw this in there because we know it doesn't, it tricks people and it confuses people, and in the HSC exam we want to make sure we're getting it right. And the reason so many people got this one is because you didn't read the question properly and you jumped to a conclusion. We have to understand that there's different types of stem cell research. There is embryonic stem cell research, which the Catholic Church certainly does not support. Okay, and then there's adult stem cell research, which the Catholic Church does support. So a blanket statement just by saying that the Catholic Church does not support stem cell research is incorrect. The Catholic Church does not support embryonic stem cell research, which is where the destruction of the embryo is involved in that. So the question, this is a higher order question, but you must read the question, and that's what threw so many people here. The people who got this wrong here really need to go back and remind themselves, because if you're saying that, this one here, rather, statement 1 is incorrect. These people, we need to go back and make sure you're learning about euthanasia, because no groups support euthanasia at all. It's not supported by any variants whatsoever. Okay, so we need to make sure that we're getting that right. The next question, most people got it correct, which is good. That I actually noticed that a lot of people were putting Zionism into their Section 2 responses too, and that's something that's a bit of a concern, so we need to make sure we're talking about that, because he wasn't a Zionist his whole way through his life. So B is correct. Martin Buber was initially a supporter of Zionism, but his views changed when the movement became politically driven. That's the correct one. Okay, so he wasn't a Zionist throughout his life. That's not true. He was staunchly anti-Zionistic, so in other words, he wasn't involved in the Zionistic movement. That's not true, because he was a Zionist for some of his life, and he initiated the Zionist movement. He certainly wasn't the initiator of the Zionist movement, so again, I'm guessing that people guessed if they didn't know the correct answer. Okay, you must know the content. Question 6, one significant impact of Martin Buber's contribution to education, again, a lot of people got this right, was B, the Institute of Jewish Learning in London was established. Okay, that was correct. We had the translation of the Hebrew Bible into his native German. Isn't a contribution to education. It's a separate issue. It was about worship and about understanding the Torah, not about education as such, and that's separated clearly in the iBook, so don't get those confused. Helping to establish a Jewish identity is about Jewish identity. It's not about education. And the Erasmus Award for Spiritual Unity was about interfaith dialogue, and that's what it was about, so not about education. So I'm actually surprised about how many people got this wrong. You need to make sure you're really clearly understanding the differences between the groups. I wouldn't have thought as many people would have got that wrong as they did. Question 7, more people got this wrong, and in fact more people chose A than any of the others, which is surprising. Okay, so which of the following variants is marriage as sacrament? So the correct answer is C, the Catholic Church, the Greek and the Russian Orthodox Church. I don't know why people were so confused here. The Uniting Church does not see marriage as a sacrament. They don't view marriage as a sacrament at all. A lot of people put this down. The Anglican Church, not the whole Anglican Church as a whole, does not see sacraments as valid. They don't believe in the sacraments. So I'm just completely thrown as to why people might have been tricked by this question. I'm just not sure what was going on there. But it's a good heads up that we need to understand which variants actually view the sacraments, or understand these to be sacraments. Question 8, in which encyclical did St. John Paul II declare that direct abortion always constitutes a grave moral disorder? I can understand why people got tricked by this, because it seems like it should be Humanae Vitae, but it's actually not. It's in Evangelium Vitae is the correct answer here. So no one put Lumen Fidei, and one or a couple of people put Magister, but the correct answer is actually Evangelium Vitae for this particular question. So they both actually mentioned abortion, but you need to make sure you're getting the details right, and it shows that people just don't have that fundamental knowledge of the content that they really need, so you need to work on that. Question 9, the offering up of human pain and hardship to God is for the sins of others in solidarity with the suffering of Christ. Which of the following does it apply? And it is the Catholic belief in redemptive suffering, and I'm blown away by the number of people who got this wrong. Redemptive suffering is a Catholic only belief that doesn't exist in any other variant of Christianity. It's a specifically Catholic only belief, and I would have thought that this was like a band 3 question, but it's obviously some people are finding it harder than that. This is one that you just need to make sure you're getting right, because and the reason we're putting these kinds of questions in is because we're seeing problems, and we're seeing these things consistently come up as issues in your responses, so we wanted to make sure we're addressing them early on. Last question, God took man, put him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate and care for it. To which of the following Jewish ethical teachings does the above quote most closely relate? And it is Lovda al-Shomra, okay, to serve and protect. To serve, to cultivate is to serve, and care is the protect part of it, so that's kind of how it fits in. Most people got this right. A few people put down tick and alarm, which, I can understand why they might think that, but it's about the most correct answer, and the most correct answer here is C. So these were quite challenging, and hopefully they're a bit of a heads up and a wake up call that you can't expect, and you can't coast through and think you know the content when you really don't. You really do need to know the content inside out, back to front, because we're going to test you on it and make sure you do understand it, and it is most important to understand it, be able to apply it in your later responses too.